Hey guys, welcome back to the shop. Thanks for being here as always. I really appreciate it. Today I'm going to sit down and talk to you guys about selling knives, how to sell knives, how to market them, that kind of thing. I did a video a while back, a little bit ago, on the philosophy of knife making, sort of how, or professional knife making, like how do you get into it as a job to pay the bills, this kind of thing, how does that even work? And so, but I didn't talk about, the actual process of getting your knives in front of customers, i.e. marketing, and somebody asked if I could talk about that a little bit, so that's what I'm going to do today. So I'll just say right off the top that I'm not an expert in this. It's definitely been a learning process for me, and I'm still, you're always trying new things, learning how to do this and what works for you and what other ways you can do things better. So, I'm not an expert. I'm just going to share with you my experience so far. And so just to give you a little bit of background, I started selling knives about 5 years ago. Made my first knife about 20 years ago, but just kind of did it as a hobby off and on for a long time. And then, didn't start selling knives until, like say, about 5 years ago. And then for over 2 years now, it's been my sole job, which has been great. It's been definitely a learning curve, learning experience. A lot of work, but I really enjoy it most days, and it's been great. So that's kind of my background right now, and so yeah, I'll just jump into. So first knives I sold, well, actually the very first knife I think I sold on Facebook, but most of the first knives I sold were on Etsy. So my wife actually has been, my biggest supporter and help in this whole thing. She actually had an Etsy shop for a different business, and then she opened an Etsy shop for me. I was a little skeptical of it at first. I thought Etsy was kind of a, where frou-frou stuff was sold, that kind of thing. But it actually turned out to be a pretty good platform for a while for the knives and other forged stuff. I still sell stuff on there, not as much as I used to, and that's okay, and I'll cover that as we go along. But Etsy is what you would call a third-party platform. Now, obviously, there's hundreds of third-party platforms for various different kinds of products online, and it's where a company or an entity sets up a online venue or shop and brings in people who make stuff or sell stuff to sell stuff on their site. eBay, Amazon, those are big ones. And Etsy. So when we first got on Etsy, it was handmade and vintage goods only. And so I feel like at the time that we got on there, it was sort of at its sweet spot or zenith of what I've considered to be a good balance between, a good customer base. They were well known and well marketed enough to have a really good customer base, and yet there wasn't a billion people, figure of speech, but there wasn't as many makers and sellers on the platform at that time, so you were not lost in the fray nearly to the degree that you are today on the same platform on Etsy. So it was a good platform for a while. Things started to change though, and a lot more people started selling on there, or continued to grow this number of sellers. But they also made some changes that were rather unfortunate, in my opinion. They brought on you can sell pretty much anything on there now. It had a certain attraction because it was handmade only and then in vintage only. So you couldn't get this stuff anywhere. And so it was very niche. It was a neat deal. Now it's pretty mainstream. First of all, they have handmade stuff online, but also Etsy, there's so much stuff on there now. It's really, it's not very unique. Other platforms, third-party platforms that I have experience with, a good experience with, at least in the past, is Custom Made. I believe they call it Custom Made Marketplace now, and I've sold a number of knives on there, so that's been all right. And then I've also had experience with multiple other handmade goods, venues, third-party platforms and stuff that simply were not worth the time that it took to upload listings and put stuff up in the shops. I don't know why. I don't know if they just didn't spend the money to advertise. I think that's what it boils down to. Is I think and that is one good thing about Etsy and stuff and like Custom Made You can pay for additional advertising on some of these platforms, but some of them just, that's part of their budget, I think, and obviously because they don't make money unless you make money. So, but anyway, some of these platforms, I don't know if it wasn't a good venue for knives, and some of them didn't even allow knives, which was interesting. So all I'm saying about third-party platforms is you really have to know what you're looking at and what the particular platform is going to do for you and how much work it's going to take to be a part of that. In my opinion, none of them are as good as having your own platform. So I'll segue into that. But yeah, you can make money on Etsy, you can make money on eBay, but it's going to take time to sort of build it up. I figured out pretty quickly that I did not want to be on any third-party platform for the rest of my knife making career. Obviously, it was a way to get started. It was a way to start getting some income and get some sales and help get my name out there to some different customers. Simultaneously, something else we did, my wife and I, is we started selling at our local farmers market, and it's not a huge farmers market. I think there's like 100 vendors or something, but it is actually one of the nationally ranked farmers markets, with whatever entity that ranks farmers markets. And it's interesting because I never necessarily would have thought that you would sell a lot of knives or forge goods at a place that most people are coming to get fresh vegetables and stuff like that. And in some cases that might be true. In this case, it's a pretty good farmers market. They have a healthy percentage of craft vendors, and that's something that they purposely do at this farmers market. And just the demographic, which is literally from all over the world, so that's kind of cool. It's a university town, so that really helps with that influx of people, I'm sure. But the demographic that's coming through there generally does have money to spend. If they're spending money on organic, hand-raised vegetables, it's not cheap. And so they generally have money to spend, and a lot of them really do appreciate, even if they aren't knife people per se, a lot of them tend to have an appreciation for art and crafts and just like the skill behind it and that kind of thing. So all that combined, has turned out to be a really good venue for 6 months out of the year when it runs. And this year we probably won't be back there this year at all due to the coronavirus issue. So I think the takeaway there for anybody is you don't really necessarily know what a venue is going to do for you until you try it out. Conversely, we tried a couple different venues with huge numbers of people they're like we went to it was called Christmas Bazaar, which is just a huge venue and all kinds of different vendors geared towards Christmas gifts, but just all kinds of different stuff. There's no one particular type of product. And then we went to a sports show, and neither of those panned out for us. As far as the fees that it costed to have a table there, that kind of stuff, and it just didn't pan out. Now, can you tweak your product a little bit and sort of cater to that particular audience? I don't know, you could, but the bottom line is you're just going to have to try venues that you think might be good, and they may be and they may not be. And it's sort of a trial and error. And there's really nothing I don't know of any formula beforehand that's going to allow you to skirt around that process. That's just kind of how it works. So that's a little bit about face-to-face venues. Now, I will say right now, that one thing I have not done yet in this whole saga, which I think could have really helped, is go to knife shows. I haven't gone to any knife shows, and which is unusual for knife makers actually. Most guys who are doing well and build up a business over a period of time, they go to knife shows, and that's another point I want to make. So at the end of the day, what you're trying to do with marketing your knives is get your knives in front of the people that want to buy them. Okay, and that's real. So if you take nothing else away from this video, that is your goal. And there's various ways to go about it, and I'm talking about the various ways that I've gone about it. And I'll tell you one of the ways that I haven't gone about it is to go to knife shows, which seems kind of stupid if you think about it. But the reason I haven't is because the nearest knife show to me is like 7 hours away, and I realize that once a year that's not, it's not that bad. But I just haven't prioritized it with everything that I have. I just haven't, and I should. And this year I was planning to do that. We'll see what happens again this year. But I would, and not based on my own experience, but based on trying a whole bunch of other things and then watching other guys, I would definitely recommend to myself to go to knife shows. The bottom line is that the knife market is vast. You're all the way from lousy, corny gas station knives, up to hundreds of thousands of dollars art knives and whatever. And there's a huge range in between. So basically, whatever your style is, whatever particular bent you want to go with when it comes to the type of knives you make, there's a market. Almost undoubtedly there's a market for it somewhere. It's just up to you to find it. And I think that a knife show would be a pretty good place to start. Now, I have talked to a few guys who go to knife shows and have gone to knife shows, and they don't necessarily, from what I have heard, you don't necessarily sell a ton of knives, but it's not necessarily about that either. It's more about building your name, or getting your name out there, building up a clientele and word of mouth. And then just networking with other knife makers and that kind of thing. So it's valuable for reasons other than just selling knives. It's sort of an investment into the long-term knife sales in the future. At least that's how my understanding of it. And like I said, I haven't done that yet, and I should have, and I will at some point. But so there's that. What else? So we've talked about third-party venues online. Talk about face-to-face sales, and let me talk about Facebook a little bit and websites. Okay, so my experience on Facebook has been rather interesting. My goal for a while on Facebook has been to build up a clientele on Facebook, and I know some guys that have done very well at that, and I, much better than I've done. And I don't understand exactly how one does that. I do know that Facebook is not knife friendly. I actually tried to advertise. You can purchase ads to advertise your page or post on your page, and that lasted about 3 days, and they shut that off. So it's solely by sharing stuff to groups or whatever, and people seeing your stuff, and then voluntarily liking your page, and then you hope that most of the people that are liking your page that are going to see your posts are people that want to buy your knives. Now, that's not necessarily true. Out of 2,000 people or 10,000 people, there's going to be a percentage of people that are actually in the market for a knife on any given day. And then I think a much greater number of people are there just to look. I'd love to have one of your knives someday, or that's really cool, whatever. There's and I don't know how you can really influence that ratio. I really don't know that. I do think that if Facebook would let us advertise, you can target audiences that are specifically interested in different genres. So that'd be nice, but they don't let you. So I don't really know how you can affect that. How successful has that been for me? Not super successful. I think it's been kind of helpful a little bit. It's been helpful, but not to the extent that I had originally envisioned, and that's okay. In any kind of entrepreneurship, running your own business, there's a lot of different things that you're going to throw against the wall. Some of them will stick, some of them won't. So, but yeah, Facebook could potentially be a great venue. I think one of the things it boils down to is just exposure, period. And whether that's online, in person, the more people that see your knives and get to hold your knives, and the more people that end up buying one of your knives, I think it becomes somewhat exponential. But just exposure, period, I think is not a bad thing. Whether a huge number of people are going to ask to buy a knife off of your Facebook page, I don't, perhaps not. And then there's Instagram and stuff. I'm not on Instagram, but I know a lot of knife guys are, and just like any other venue, I'm sure it takes time to build up the numbers to where, you have people that are actually interested in buying a knife instead of just looking at the pictures you put up. Other online, what's the word? They're not venues, well, like forums. A big one is blade forums. There's others. And some guys have had good success getting their knives, their work in front of prospective customers like that. And I know you can sell, you have to pay money, but you can sell knives on like the blade forums, for example. And there's knife collectors on there and stuff. So something like that, not so aside from just Facebook and Instagram, go to where the knife people are that could be helpful for your work. So your own website. And so here's another takeaway I think that I've learned is you want to have a multi-faceted approach to getting your knives in front of potential customers. And so your own website is just one of those, but it's important. So what your website, your Facebook, if you do Instagram, a YouTube channel, face-to-face venues, find some of those. All of these things, I think, are going to contribute to the overall goal of building up a clientele, who want to buy your knives. And so my goal has long been, for a while now, has been to build that up to the point where I'm able to just make kind of what I want to make and put it up on whatever site or venue or whatever, and have somebody buy it pretty quickly. That's sort of my goal, and then take some custom orders from time to time as well. Not there yet, but I can see progress in that direction, so it is encouraging. So your own website. I'll give you this little tip about your website, which is the mistake I made. I didn't do this until only just a couple months ago, and I don't know why. I just didn't think of it. But you should have your own website, most definitely. That's not hard to do these days. There's any number of different website, cut or click and paste, whatever. Like you can just build a website very easily. All you have to do is type in the information. They have templates and everything like that. So if you don't have your own website, get on. I use GoDaddy. That's just one of many. There's Wix. There's Squarespace. There's others. So get your own website. But if you have a website now, or when you get your website up, get a little form on the front page of your website that allows people to sign up on an email list. You can set it. You can set it up to where they get a 10% coupon off their first order on products you have on your website. I have that up there. They have to apply the coupon, whatever or not. But put it on there. Basically telling people what it is. Like if you want to be notified of, not available knives or whatever, sign up here. And I mean, I can't believe that it took me so long to figure this out. So like every website does this, but the great thing about that, the awesome thing about that, is that the people that are going to sign up on that list have a pretty good interest in getting one of your knives at least at some point. And that is vastly different than having, several thousand people that like your Facebook page, right? So our whole goal is here, obviously, to get our knives in front of people who want to buy them. So if you can build a target market, like a customer base that are there for your knives, that is, in my opinion, going to be the best thing that you can do. And like I say, there's other ways to do that. handing out business cards at knife shows, etc., etc. Because not everybody necessarily is online, although most people are these days. Anyway, that's just the main one of the main tips I would give you for a website is get that up there, that email list sign up form. So covered pretty much all the venues that I have experience with and the ways to contact potential customers. So I'll just talk about one more thing that maybe not a lot of people are able to experience, but I want to talk about it, and that is some kind of exposure, like a TV show. I was on Forged in Fire. I was able to win my episode, and so I got national, I guess even worldwide exposure. So my whole reason for going on that show was for the exposure, the advertisement, if you will, to try to help build my business. And so how did that work out? What did it do? Well, it has helped, but the place that I've seen it help the most is in the face-to-face venues, particularly the farmers market that we normally go to. And I imagine it would be beneficial, at knife shows and that kind of thing as well. Not as much online, not as much even on Facebook or stuff like that. And I mean, you might have this idea that, if you're on TV, then everybody's going to know who you are and everybody's going to want to buy a knife from you. Well, that hasn't been my experience. Maybe it is for some people. Maybe I probably don't make very good TV material. I don't know. But it did help a little bit. And I think there's something about people being able to walk up to a booth and in that experience, be like, oh, I'm going to take a picture with you. I've had to have that happen a few times. People that are fans of the show, it's a lot different than, how do you find somebody like that online? Like that doesn't really, you're not looking for, because they're not looking for a Forged in Fire guy at the farmer's market, but I have a little sign. I do have a little sign out there that says that, because there was a lot of people prior to me going on the show. They're like, when are you going to go on Forged in Fire? And still some people say that actually. Like, I already did. You must not have seen it. And so yeah, face-to-face venues is where it really seemed to help, and it did actually. But it's not the end all. So don't feel like you can't make this work just or that if you could just get on a show like that, then everything would just fall into place for you. And that's not been my experience. You have to do a lot of things right, a lot of different things right, and push and work on a lot of different things to make this all come together. There is no magic pill or just like, oh, I was on Forged in Fire and now I have a 10-year backlog. Like that's not going to happen. Yeah, so I just wanted to share that more as an encouragement. Like, hey, it's cool if you can get on Forged in Fire or something like that, but don't hang your hat on it. Okay, I think I kind of covered everything I have to ramble about, but I'll just wrap up with this here. So this is kind of the final takeaway point here that I give you guys, and that is it just takes time to build this kind of stuff up. Sometimes it takes more time, sometimes it takes less time, depending on how successful you are initially at finding your customer base. There's all these different factors, and like I said at the beginning of the video, I'm not an expert. I don't know all the factors. I can just share my experience with you. But if you're seeing growth, if you're seeing things slowly build up, and you're trying different things, and maybe something doesn't work over here, okay, we'll try something else. In my opinion, at the end of the day, that's kind of the best you can ask for. Yeah, some guys are able to kind of get their name out there a lot quicker than others in trying different things, and you just try everything you can. And as long as you're seeing an uptick, month to month or year to year, even, it's kind of hard to track things without at least a year's time. Then that's good, and that's probably the most you can ask for. Because it's really easy for us, I think, to see different stories online on YouTube or whatever of people that I made whatever the business is. I don't think it's any Knifemakers, but whatever online business, they made X number of dollars in 6 months and all this stuff. That's not really real life. And when it comes to legitimate businesses or businesses that are going to be around 10 years from now, 20 years from now, slow growth is really the name of the game from what I understand and what I've seen. And so, don't be worried that things are going slowly. As long as they're going and you're continuing, it takes a lot of work. I'm not going to lie. It's a lot of work to strike out like this and make this happen. But I think it's worth it. And if you think it's worth it, then it is. So I guess that's all I have for you guys right now. Hopefully that helps somebody. Like I said, I'm still learning. If you guys have ideas and insight, I'd love to hear it. It's kind of all I got. So appreciate you guys watching, and we'll see you on the next video.